Welcome back to AM Joy. It's no secret that Donald Trump loves Fox News. So it was no surprise when an internal FDA email circulated on Twitter explained to employees that the administration had ordered that all televisions be switched from CNN to Fox. The FDA confirmed that the email was sent by the Office of Facilities to employees, but denied that there was any directive from the administration to switch to all Fox all the time. Although a source within the FDA told the Washington Post, Eric Wemple, that the TVs there are all tuned to Fox. Now, there's no denying that the Trump administration relies heavily on Fox News to disseminate its alternate reality. Trump is a professed fan of at the very least, he reportedly spends hours every day watching when he's not playing golf. And he fawns over Fox's coverage of his administration in tweets, because on Fox, Trump has exceeded all expectations. His questionable claims are validated, and his performance is described as decisive leadership. It's an alternative reality that serves at the pleasure of Trump. Meanwhile, the real reality of Fox News is where a woman allegedly was booted off the air after she wrote about her infertility, thus decreasing her sex appeal in the minds of her bosses, who require all the women on and off the TV to be hot. Where managers allegedly forced black employees to arm wrestle white female employees for their amusement. Where a black woman working as a receptionist was called not by her name by Bill O'Reilly, but by the name Hot Chocolate. And where facts that might be unpleasant for supporters of the Republican administration and the party are often replaced with alternative facts, just like the very best of state-run TV. The question remains, can this alternate reality sustain itself under a new lawsuit and an ongoing investigation by the feds? Back with me is conservative commentator Kirsten Haglund, and joining me now is New York City public advocate Letitia James and Tamara Holder, a former Fox News contributor who settled with Fox News over a sexual assault case. Thank you all for being here, ladies. And I want to come to you first on this, Tamara, because this New York Times piece that talks about your settlement, it really is unique. First of all, in the fact that you were able to get Fox to include the words sexual assault in the sort of joint statement they put out, and that they settled with you.
Correct. And I really think that Fox did the right thing here, and that they're trying to do the right thing moving forward. They're cleaning house. They obviously got rid of Roger Ailes less than a year ago. They got rid of the top guy who produces, all of the advertising dollars, Bill O'Reilly. They got rid of Bill Shine. So it takes time. I think that they are trying to show that they did the right thing in my case and just as a network as a whole.
Your case was more extreme, as bad as these other cases were of sexual harassment and sort of untoward comments and lewd advances. Your case was a case of sexual assault. It was quite serious. The person was fired. And in addition to that, your management, the people who were your talent management, your agents, instructed you not to say anything.
Right, and that's where I really want people to understand why people don't come forward, why women don't come forward, whether it's at Fox News or anywhere else. It's fear. It's fear-based. I was told that I would be toxic if I went to Fox. And then they closed the door on me. They stopped doing work on my behalf. They refused to help my lawyers. And this is a major agency. This is ICM. We're not talking about some people that don't know how to do business.
Yeah, and you in fact did disappear off TV. You stopped being on TV.
Yeah,
and most of the women have.
Sure, and so they made me toxic.
Yeah.
They made me toxic. And yes, the other thing is that it's interesting that the women who have attacked other women publicly, their careers seem to be okay.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are still on TV, but the women who are actually hurt are toxic at no fault of our own.
Did you get any support from the women, the female employees at Fox when this happened to you?
That's a very interesting question. No.
Not a one?
No.
Either on the air people or off the air people?
I got support from one of my friends, who's Jamu Green, who is also mentioned in an article, and she's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
But other than that, and she knew what was going on, but other than that, no, nothing. The men, I did hear from some of the men.
Interestingly enough, and Kirsten, that is sort of the bigger picture, bigger than just Fox and sort of the false things they say on TV and the way they make all the women have giant hair and look, fabulous. Of course, we're on TV, right? You have to look great, and we all get glam squatted. But, the sort of creation of a world in which it's sort of a playground for men, particularly for white, older men, who can have this sort of bevy of young, hot women around them. They can say whatever they want to them, treat them any way they want, where the black people are marginalized and can't do anything about it. It is creating this sort of right-wing proto-universe that that women can't, even support each other inside of.
Right, and it really is disheartening and heartbreaking, I think, to have seen all of this, because I think there were a lot of people at Fox too that didn't necessarily know that this was going on. Some who did, who kept quiet, who should not have. But and as someone also who has an entertainment background and was at Miss America, I see this across industries, but I think it's really generational, right?
Thank you for saying that.
you have older men who think that they can do this, even politicians, men who I've been in their offices on Capitol Hill, lobbying for mental health and eating disorder, and they pat their stomach, which they had an eating disorder, and you certainly don't look like that. I mean, so this is a mindset that needs to change across generations, and women, I think, are really finding their voice now to stand up for themselves and really show a generation of young women coming up that they're worth more than just what they look like.
And thank you for saying that, because you come, as you said, out of the pageant world, which Donald Trump was very much involved in, and we know his history there of preying on even teenage girls and sort of treating them as a commodity.
And it's awful. It's awful, right?
And Letitia, now on the other side of this, there is, beyond the sort of horror of it for the way that women have to exist in these kinds of, in 2017, there's still a legal case here. Tell us the status. Your office brought an action in regard to the lying to shareholders aspect of this case, the fact that these settlements that were paid to women, settlements paid to people like Tamara, were not hidden investors. What's the status of that investigation?
First, let me say congratulations on your one-year anniversary.
Thank you.
Two, let me say that as of last week, there were 15 cases against Fox News. And one case was a class action involving 13 separate individuals alleging racial discrimination.
Right.
So the cases are still ongoing.
Yep.
In addition to that, there's a federal investigation focusing on the payments, the accounting of the payments and how they were paid and whether or not they were reported as income or settlement.
Yeah.
In addition to that, there's the Human Rights Commission in the city of New York, which is continuing to investigate the climate and the culture within Fox News.
Yeah, and I should read the statement that Fox News put out jointly with Tamara's lawyers, and this was published via the New York Times in the story that they put out on March 8th. It said, in a rare public disclosure, Fox News released this joint statement, and it said, immediately after Ms. Holder notified Fox News of the alleged incident, the company promptly investigated the matter and took decisive action, for which Ms. Holder thanks the network. This person was fired, the person who exposed himself to Tamara and assaulted her, essentially. So there at least was some action in that. But I think the bigger question, at least in the federal probe, is this question of whether or not the parent company of Fox News, whether or not there was lying about the payments. Federal prosecutors are looking into whether they tried to disguise $3.15 million in payments to an employee who said she had a 20-year affair with the network's former chairman, Roger Ailes, according to people involved in the investigation.
Right.
The fact that this goes all the way up to Roger Ailes, who ran the network, says something about the culture overall.
And the reality is that when you disclose to shareholders, you're supposed to disclose the risk.
Yep.
And all of these lawsuits that have been filed against Fox News, again, create this atmosphere or this notion that Fox News is not being subject to all these harassment claims when we know that that's not true.
Yeah.
So they lied, they misrepresented, and they materially failed to disclose to shareholders. And a lot of those shareholders are New York City retirees.
Yep.
That in fact these lawsuits were not going on, and this climate and culture within Fox News was not going on in that corporation. And last but not least, right now they're trying to acquire another news outlet,
right.
And obviously that is impacting them because one of the determinations is whether or not they're fit and proper. And clearly, based on these allegations, these 15 claims, racial discrimination and class action, they are not fit and proper at all.
And that's a really important point. I want to come to Tamara, but first I want to go to Kirsten on this question of the climate. You talked about this climate, and both of you guys have talked about this climate. There's an investigation also being looked into as to whether Roger Ailes used prominent private investigator Bo Dietl, who appears on the network, to probe the backgrounds of people perceived to be a threat to either Mr. Ailes or to the channel. So there's this question of people actually feeling threatened, not just by their agents saying that you'll disappear, but actually threatened by being investigated.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a climate of control, but I think that they really do want to change that. And I think that the changes that are slowly being made are good for all organizations, right? This is a win for everyone. And I do just want to point out as well that Janice Dean recently came back, and she's a meteorologist at Fox, and she had surgery, a neck surgery, plastic surgery that didn't go well, and she was very open about that, and that plays into this whole sexuality and attractiveness and women getting older and all that. And they highlighted her op-ed, they were very prominent in sharing her story, and it was really celebrated. So I think the right mindset is going into trying to change some of this. I think we can all agree that for women it's been far too long coming, but I think there definitely is a change agent of culture.
And I think it's because they want to make that acquisition and they know they have to clean things up. The woman who's now running Fox News, the president, reportedly was the enforcer of the miniskirt policy. So it's interesting that she got her job. But I want you to, Tamara, if you could give some advice to women who find themselves in a workplace where they feel uncomfortable, where they're afraid. I mean, you were quite brave to come forward, especially without any support. You know, in this business where your agents can determine whether you work again and where you could just vanish off TV and that's a part of your livelihood gone, do you think that women should still take that risk?
Absolutely. It's scary. I can tell you that I spent almost a year and a half in my closet crying with PTSD and depression because I was so afraid that the people who I thought were going to support me and they had my best interests at heart with regard to a career. I thought they had a vested interest in my career, right? They get me a job somewhere else. They get paid. Tell me to shut up. It's a horrendous experience and place to be. However, whenever you go through anything in life, you come out stronger. And I hope that women out there listening, and men too, understand that, number one, women don't report for many, many reasons. My mom was dying at the time. I was told not to. I'm a criminal defense attorney.
Right.
And I still was afraid to go to the police.
Yeah.
So I understand the fear. And on top of that, lawyers didn't take my case because they said I wasn't Gretchen Carlson or
Not
Megyn
a big
Kelly.
enough star for them.
I wasn't a big enough star, and the person who assaulted me was not Roger Ailes or Bill O'Reilly.
Wow.
So I understand where it comes from, where the fear of I'm not big enough, I'm not good enough, and what's going to happen to me. Is my husband going to believe me? Are my friends going to believe me? Are the investigators going to believe me? But I just want women to know that if I can do it, they can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also a message to the women who are these sort of big enough stars that, you know, it would be nice if they supported other women in this situation, because sometimes the person with the power is the person that can help the women that are, you know, coming in behind her to succeed. But you know what? You're a very brave woman for doing this, and you are a criminal defense lawyer with an incredible history. You should be on TV. I want to invite you back on, not just to talk about this, but to, you know, do your legal analyst thing with us too.
All right, I have a lot of opinions, trust me.
Absolutely. Okay.
Fox News, I have 7 years of opinions.
We will reassemble this group of strong women on this very panel again because they are some of our favorites. Kirsten Haglund, Letitia James, and Tamara Holder, my Power Women panel. Thank you guys, and you guys are all be